Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets, live streaming on Telegram, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you can find me on any of those platforms, check out the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get more subs over there, and maybe do some, YouTube exclusives for the live streaming to build up the channel a little bit. But anyway, today is a Freeform Friday, and what we do on the show, mostly if you're new to the show, we talk about Bitcoin and macro and try to discover where we're going in the future. I mean, we know a lot of the arguments for Bitcoin, and we look skeptically at the global financial system, geopolitics going on, national politics in different places. We have to be a little bit careful talking about that. That's how I lost my first YouTube channel, was I commented on some international politics that I guess YouTube didn't like, and they immediately terminated the channel. But anyway, so that's what we do. And you can see on the screen here, this is my website, bitcoinandmarkets.com. Check it out. I put all of my content there. So every live stream gets, some light editing and put out on the podcast as well. And each post has all the charts. So let me take a look at one of these posts. And so this is the peak oil demand that I talked about the other day. You can see that it has a little bit of a write-up, all the links that I talk about during each episode will be there, as well as all of the charts that I talk about. So we will be going over several charts today, and they will be in the associated post. Okay, so that is that. Yeah, it's a little bit of a slow day. I put out on the Telegram, almost every day I put a post that, hey, this is your guys's daily thread for random thoughts, what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're seeing going on out there. And had quite a few people post in there. There was one story about the the weather balloon, that's a Chinese weather balloon that's flying over Montana. It is a little bit weird, but also look at the weather patterns that we're having. I mean, there's like a polar vortex that's about to hit the New England area. It's one super, super cold air mass that could be affecting some of these different types of weather balloons out there. It's probably not a first. They could shoot it down, but it's gigantic. I was reading a story about it. It was like the size of 3 buses. So I mean, it's not like, I mean, you're shooting down a balloon, and the instruments that are crashing. I mean, it's like a full size, 747 type size crashing down to Earth. And yeah, Montana is very sparsely populated, but I don't think that they're too worried about this. And I saw one commentator saying that this shows weakness by the U.S. I mean, maybe. The U.S. intelligence is some of the best in the world, and they know what's on that air balloon, and they know that Chinese satellites can fly over the U.S. anyway. It's not like they're going to collect any specific data that they couldn't get in other ways, So I don't think that's really a big deal. We'll see what happens in coming days. What else? Let me go through some of your guys' random thoughts or random posts here. And, oh, Craig is right. Yeah, I mean, that's, I was around when he first came out. And I remember watching, there was a Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, and he showed up on a panel, and he was kind of a mysterious character, but they kind of introduced him not necessarily as Satoshi, but as one of the original Bitcoiners, like that from, way back on the cryptography mailing lists and things. And so I remember when he first came in the space, and then he convinced Gavin Andresen that he was Satoshi. And it's always, people have always known from the very beginning that he is a fraud. And it just won't die. It just won't die. This controversy will not die. It's so blatant that he's a scammer. And I don't know. I kind of like the Bitcoin forks in that they were a place for these crazy people to fork off to and not bother with Bitcoin anymore. Of course, I feel bad for HODLNOT and some other, I guess he's going after developers now. I feel bad for those people, and yeah, I just wish he would go away, but it's too lucrative. I mean, these the scams out there are just too lucrative. And that does bring up the point too about another post that I had this morning with this Ripple stuff. So apparently, Ripple believes that they have won a big concession by the SEC in their ongoing court case, that they got the SEC to admit to the judge that, I don't know the exact ins and outs of this, but they got the judge to, or the SEC to admit that the secondary market for these unregistered securities somehow makes them not unregistered securities anymore, or not trading unregistered securities, or I guess the trading of the unregistered securities is not the bad thing. It's the issuing of the unregistered securities. So people are trying to get XRP back onto, or Ripple. Should never call it XRP. Okay, it's Ripple. Trying to get Ripple back onto Coinbase so they can dump on plebs again. But anyway, it's bad and frustrating because it would be better if they didn't say anything. But if Ripple somehow ends up winning in court, it's like giving a seal of approval from the official SEC for all of these scams. I think it's very bad precedent if they do this. I mean, you might as well not sue, because I don't know. It's just a very frustrating, and it points out that the SEC is good for nothing. They are absolutely good for nothing. Anyways, so that's all I had to say about that. I saw this other post by Jim Rickards, and let's get into this one. So I had to bring this up. Of course, Jim Rickards is famous in the gold bug space. I bought one of his books way back in the day when I was a gold bug, and Currency Wars. That was what it was called, Currency Wars. And they made a lot of sense. I mean, he's kind of the progenitor of a lot of the stuff like Zoltan Pozar talks about now, about Bretton Woods 3.0. Is that what it is? Bretton Woods 3.0. And anyway, so Jim Rickards says, hey, they're going to remonetize gold. They're actually talking about this. They're actually planning about this. He war gamed with the CIA. That's like his claim to fame here. And the war game was about how to get back to a gold standard, or that going to a gold standard was part of winning this currency wars. Anyway, that was so long ago, and nothing he's claimed or predicted has come to pass in any way, shape, or form that I know of. Somehow he still has a gigantic following. It's just like Peter Schiff. I mean, I cannot believe the following and influence that Peter Schiff has. It's amazing. It's amazing that these people can be so wrong for so long, and they still have a following. I guess it's all about charisma. It's all about, I guess, just speaking to the choir. There's people that want to believe these things. I mean, I guess that's why the QAnon stuff is so popular, because it's just people that want to believe in their fantasies, and so they find a personality that's going to stroke their bias, and That's it. That's why these people are so popular. So I don't know, but Jim Rickards, he's back here talking about a digital dollar. We talk about CBDCs a lot. CBDCs are a new form of money. They are not credit based money that we have today. So if a central bank creates a CBDC, they are actually creating a new form of money. They're cutting out commercial banks. Everyone will have a bank account with the central bank. Commercial banks will kind of be dramatically affected. So it's not as easy as just saying, oh, we need to do a digital dollar. First off, dollars are already digital for the most part. So a CBDC shouldn't be called a digital dollar. That's kind of silly. But anyway, let's read into this post here a little bit. Okay, so it says warning shot fired. Another warning shot across the bow just happened. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Mr. Rickards, for letting us in on this. I warned my readers a few weeks ago about how the Federal Reserve, in cooperation with giant global banks, has launched a 12-week pilot project to test the message systems and payment processes on a new CBDC dollar. A pilot project is not research and development. That's already done. The pilot means that what I call Biden bucks are here, and the backers just want to test the plumbing before they roll the system out on the entire population. The project is due to be completed next month. Oh my gosh, guys. It's here. The dreaded US digital dollar CBDC is here. Oh my gosh, they're going to destroy the economy. They're gonna, you know, make all of our transactions illegal. It's so concerning. Fear, be fearful, people. Listen to Jim Rickards. He has the message for you. Okay. In other words, Biden bucks are getting closer to becoming a reality for all of us. Now there is another big development to keep you up to speed. This month, the Digital Dollar Project, DDP, released an updated version of its white paper called Exploring a US CBDC. The project expanded the paper in order to examine central bank digital currency projects internationally, though its focus is still on the United States. Since its original white paper release in 2020, CBDC projects worldwide have increased from 35 to 114. Okay, the reason why they had to expand to internationally, because nothing's happening in the United States. The Fed has said they cannot do a CBDC. It's beyond their mandate. They would have to get an act of Congress to do a CBDC. And do you think that you think that's possible in today's divided Congress and today's hyper politicized environment? No way. No way. A CBDC is not happening in the United States. 100%. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say, let's speak in probabilities like George Gammon. Okay. 99.9% a CBDC is not happening anytime soon in the United States. I never even heard of this digital dollar project. It's an NGO. I actually looked into it. It is an NGO, and they're probably funded by Soros or something like that to push an idea of a digital dollar to try to get it into the United States because Powell and the New York banks don't want it. They understand it. The Fed actually understands CBDCs extremely well. And I'll always point back to Randall Quarles. He was vice chair at the Fed up to, I think, through 2021. And he had a speech where he detailed out exactly the problems with CBDCs. He said it better than probably me or people in crypto in Bitcoin could say it. They understand it very well and the problems with a CBDC. So no, this is not happening. The powers that be, like the Davos crowd and the globalists, they want the U.S. to have a CBDC, but they're not going to. It's just not going to happen. Let's take a look at this digital dollar project because I do have this pulled up. And he said that the pilot means that the research is done. All right. Well, let's read what this digital dollar project from their updated white paper. The DDP has made significant progress so far, including creating an initial pilot program to explore potential use cases for a digital dollar under real world conditions. In November of 2022, the DDP completed its first private sector initiated simulated US CBDC pilot in partnership with the DTCC and with technical support from Accenture. The pilot explored, so this is research. This is not that it's done and it's ready to be rolled out. The pilot explored how a digital dollar might operate in the US clearing and settlement infrastructure by leveraging distributed ledger technology. The report on the pilot can be assessed here. Okay, I mean, this digital ledger technology, trying to blockchain all the things, this the argument that it's not Bitcoin, it's the technology behind Bitcoin that is so revolutionary. There's a company called R3. It was called something before R3. I don't remember what it was, but they've been doing this exact same thing for years, trying to find a use case for digital distributed ledger technology, trying to find buyers. They've had tons of pilot programs. They've, every few months there from maybe like 2015 to 2018 or 19, we heard about R3. They were signing some new contract with somebody to do a pilot program for them, and DLT was going to take over the world and yada, yada, yada. And nothing ever came of it. The more they do things like this, they understand you don't need a blockchain for this. That was from Bitcoin Uncensored. Fantastic podcast. They said, right off the bat, when R3 was getting going, they said, guess what? They're going to find out in about a year's time that they don't need a blockchain. Because at first it was all blockchain, right? Then 6 months later, they came out and said, oh, we don't need a blockchain. We need distributed ledger technology. And the guys at Bitcoin Uncensored were like, give them a few months, they'll find out they don't need DLT. And they couldn't find a use case for this. So this is the same exact thing. It's just NGOs trying to push this political CBDC narrative forward. Because it's like I said before, the technocrats, central planners, statists, they think that all that's needed is enough buy-in. All they need is enough people, enough effort, and they can make the proper communist country. They can make the proper central planning. They can achieve the, seemingly impossible if they just put forth enough effort. And that's exactly what this is. They think, oh, if we just fund more pilot programs, we're going to find a way to make a CBDC legitimate and work properly. But they can't. It's just, this is the same exact, they have made no progress in the last, say, 8 years. They have made no progress on how to use DLT or blockchain for their CBDCs. Zero progress. There's been all these pilot programs and nothing has worked. All right, let's continue to see what they're doing here. Establishing the Open Digital Currency Initiative alongside partners from the Linux Foundation, Hyperledger. That's a red flag if you have Hyperledger on your partner list. And Finos, I don't know what Finos is. The ODCI is an open community dedicated to experimentation. No, I thought Jim Rickers told me that the job is done. They're going to launch Biden bucks next month. But they're forming this initiative to have experimentation, information sharing, and public discussions on CBDCs to ensure that central banks develop and deploy digital currencies with the best available technology. Oh, God. Okay, continuing. Launching a technical sandbox program So they have it like they are still trying to design these and pick the best design. It's an environment to explore potential technical design choices for a US CBDC. The program serves as a collaborative space for DDP participants to examine real world technologies and explore potential implications for business strategies and operations. Again, explore, experiment, yada, yada, yada. Same thing, same, no progress in 8 years. Convening high level subject matter expert working groups to address to address important and impactful issues that must be addressed as the U.S. considers a digital dollar, including privacy and risk. The DDP and its privacy working group published privacy principles for a digital dollar in October of 2021. Okay, that brings up the privacy, and we did touch on this in Telegram as well. The government always thinks that privacy means other third parties, right? That the government isn't a third party. So your CBDC will be private to other third parties, but not to the eyes of the government. So there's no such thing as privacy in CBDC. It's if people say that, they're liars. They're either liars or they're idiots. Okay. All right. So that's all. There's a little bit more here of what they're doing, but it's just same old, same old. They can't figure out how to make this work. There's been no progress in 8 years. Actually, the progress that has been made in 8 years is getting more people to buy into the idea, but no progress has been made on the actual ideas themselves. Okay. Let's jump over and look at a few charts here. Starting with Bitcoin. I did a packet in Telegram so you guys can get out. This is very interesting. So we're looking at the Bitcoin chart. Golden Cross is still incoming. It's taking a while. But I put this channel on here the other day for the newsletter on Monday. And this would follow the pattern that we've seen in the past of a consolidation in an upward bull flag. And I'll bring up the RSI, and you can see the RSI now is down below 70. So it is consolidating. And it's staying in this channel for now. So we'll see if this is what happens. It would mean in about another week's time, we have some sort of bearish scare to the downside that will give people, bears, enough time to open up their shorts again, load up on their shorts, and then we can squeeze them going higher. So anyway, not much to report on the Bitcoin chart. It's sitting, 23,500 like it has for a while. Let's take a look at the dollar. The dollar is much more interesting. It is bouncing now. So I've been waiting for this bounce, guys. I've been waiting for the bounce in the dollar, and we finally are getting it. It's amazing too that this is happening right after, all of these monetary policy decisions that we covered on FedWatch. Of course, the Fed, but the ECB came out with theirs as well. The Bank of England, the BOE. So there's all of these policy decisions that have come out, and pretty much immediately when the Bank of England announced their policy, that the pound started crashing, the euro started crashing when the ECB announced, and now we have a dollar bounce. Also, if I didn't put this chart into the packet, but the Hong Kong dollar, it's getting towards the top of the peg. It's actually at 7.84. And remember, the top of the peg is 7.85. So that is telling me that there is dollar stress returning to the East Asian economies, and China specifically. It would be where, Hong Kong dollar is really addressing this dollar shortage that's in China. So that would also say, look, the dollar is probably bottomed for now, and we're going to have the dollar going up. Now, what that should mean is stocks go down, right? And Bitcoin go down. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Let's take a look at stocks. It's trying to hold. It's trying to hold. The jobs report data was pretty bad. Well, hawkish. I should say. The jobs report was hawkish because it showed, a lot. We'll cover that in a second, but it showed the lowest unemployment rate, 3.4% in the U.S. in 50 years. So, being that since Powell is so hung up on the employment side, trying to crush demand, and to crush demand, you need to get people fired. So, they think that since the jobs report is not obeying Powell either, just like long-term bond or long bond yields are not obeying Powell, that that's going to be continued hawkishness from the Fed. But anyway, so this is trying to hang in there. It's about even for the day. We'll see a little bit red here on a few ticks, but the stock market doesn't look too bad. It's not like it's crashing at the moment or anything like that. Okay, oil. This was in the pack I put out as well, and it's falling precipitously again today, down to $73 a barrel. Oh man. Of course, I did that whole episode the other day on peak oil demand. And guys, it's just what's going on here. I don't know how people can look at this chart. Well, I was going to say, I don't know how people can look at this chart and think that there's going to be, huge demand coming online from China and that we're going to go up to $100, $200 a barrel. But that's because people don't look at the chart. People just have their own idea already formed, and they think, oh, of course, oil's going to go up. Whatever. That's it. That's all the charts I have for today. Let's get into the jobs report. So I'm sharing this tab. This is a story from Zero Hedge, and the headline is, "What was behind today's wow, wow, wow jobs report? There was a loud gasp from Wall Street strategists and economists after today's job report printed, with the reactions more or less in line with sheer shock." So the CNBC anchor said, "Wow, wow, blast off number." Yeah, so holy moly, what a report. Seasonal distortions and benchmarking aside, people who want jobs can find them. And while their labor share of GDP isn't rising, there is something extraordinary and good going on. Okay, but that's not the case. Jobs are not just readily available. I think part-time jobs are readily available. Low skill jobs are readily available. But the full-time, high-paying jobs, they're not expanding, guys. And we'll get into that here a little bit more. And with the unemployment rate plunging to 3.4%, matching the lowest in 54 years, while the payrolls report showing an additional 517,000 jobs and the highest since July, and far above the highest forecast. In fact, a record 9 sigma beat to the median consensus. The shock was merited, as today's report was indeed a blowout. But why? What happened that everyone was so wrong? A couple things. First, as we warned yesterday, today the BLS unveiled a slew of data revisions, which include updating the population controls, which would have the mechanical effect of boosting the labor force, and updating seasonal factors, which further distorted from January non-farm payroll number. Okay. And then they have this image here that shows the exact way that they have adjusted the numbers, but it looks like there was a big revision in the way that they count employed people. Let's go down here. Just look at this chart that I didn't share this chart on Telegram. You can see the blue columns or bars, whatever, are the old way of calculating the non-farm payrolls, and the orange color is the new revised data, and every single month is higher. Let's see, going back, well, actually, February of 20 is that 2021. Looks like it's not higher, but pretty much every month is higher, has been revised higher. There was something out that I did cover in months past. It was this image. And I've talked about this a lot. So the green line is the green household, or that's the establishment survey. And the red line is the household survey. These are both surveys by the US government, and or they're both official surveys out there. And you can see there's this huge gap forming. It was something like 2 million jobs, this gap, and people were talking about how odd this is. What explains this big gap? Well, the household survey counts employed people, and the establishment survey counts payrolls, counts jobs. So one explanation would be people getting second or third jobs. I think that's still I think that's accurate, because just from my own personal experience, the people I know and things, yeah, people are getting second jobs, or I see people working second jobs to make ends meet. So definitely that is a factor here. Okay, let's look at the next one. This one kind of blew my socks off. So the blue line here is full-time workers, and the red line is part-time workers. And like I said just a minute ago, there's not a lot of hiring going on in full-time employment, especially high-skilled full-time employment. So when you're talking professionals, there's a lot of hiring going on when you talk about part-time jobs, side gigs. So that tells me that, again, it's people getting second jobs out there, second part-time jobs to make ends meet. Okay, and the big thing, let's go down here to where they talk about the adjustments. So I guess Zero Hedge tweeted out, I can't follow Zero Hedge. They blocked me years ago when I called out their bad takes on Bitcoin from like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. They blocked me, and so I can't see their tweets. But anyway, they warned yesterday that it's not the January payrolls report, it's the January seasonal adjustment report. So typically in November, or typically in January, there is very high seasonal adjustment. And that's for many different reasons. It is the first year of the month. There's people have just done a lot of traveling in December for the holidays, and so they're home. They're not spending as much money. Maybe they're have their new budget there, so the economy slows down a little bit naturally. Plus, a lot of extra people are hired at retail outlets for the season. Delivery drivers and things. I remember in college I worked at UPS, and they hired on a bunch of extra people to go out with the drivers during the holiday season, because they just had so many more packages to deliver. So the holiday season has a really high increase in part-time work and jobs in general. And so January, typically there is a big seasonal adjustment to that, to kind of smooth out the month to month, because it wouldn't look right. It'd be harder to understand it's hard to understand the way they do it, but it would be harder to understand if we saw like an increase in 5 million jobs in December, and then we lost 5 million jobs in January every single year. It wouldn't make sense. Well, it's because of the way that the seasons work. And so these seasonal adjustments are used to smooth that out. But here we go. It says, guess what? It was because while the adjusted payrolls print was an increase of 517,000, the unadjusted was negative 2.5 million. This is what Bloomberg chief economist Anna Wong put it. This is what? This is how. That's a typo. Quote, the January jobs report showed extremely robust growth, higher than the highest estimate in the Bloomberg survey. If it seems too good to be true, that's because it's too good to be true. The gain is mostly due to seasonal factors and revisions to past data. The Fed likely won't place too much weight on this report in formulating policy. That's an important point here that she makes. That the Fed knew this, okay? The Fed sees they see these numbers, they know what's going on, and they're not going to put too much weight on this if they have a goal of actually doing their jobs properly, which that is questionable. But as long as there's no ulterior motive and the Fed is actually trying to get it right, then they'll see through this the same way we see through this, right? All right, continuing. Readers knew this, of course. In our non-farm payroll preview last night, we quoted Goldman, who said that, quote, the January seasonal factors have evolved favorably in recent years, with a month-over-month hurdle for private payrolls of 2.8 million, of negative 2.8 million. So they knew this. They knew that it was a huge seasonal adjustment. Last year was 2.9. And recent years, I guess it has averaged about 2.8 million. So it's not, this isn't a crazy seasonal adjustment or anything. Let's continue. We believe the BLS seasonal factors are overfitting to the Omicron-related payroll deceleration, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They did talk about the Fed in this piece. Up here, I think they just said that, Powell has talked about, here we go, in practical terms, whether they were merited or purely goal-seeked propaganda, the revisions help to resolve the mystery of missing workers in the labor market. Fed Chair Jerome Powell and most analysts have estimated that about 2.5 to 3 million workers are quote-unquote missing, i.e., most analysts would expect many more workers to be working today if the pandemic hadn't happened. Well, there was a 813,000 upward revision to the December payrolls report. Okay, so that is showing where these missing workers were. And if we go back up to this chart, the chart that I like about the household versus the establishment survey, you can see that those missing workers have been kind of found. It's interesting to me that they hadn't done this, that they could be missing in general in the first place. But anyways, okay. So that's all I have. I'm going to cut it there for today's live stream, other than after I hit stop for the YouTube and Twitter, I'm going to open up the mic on Telegram and see what you guys have to say. So if you guys watching on YouTube or on Twitter want to take part, you got to join the Telegram, t.me/Bitcoin and markets. Come on over there. We're talking a lot every day. There's a lot of good conversation. A lot of people bring up great topics, great podcast episodes that they're listening to, articles they're reading, stuff like that. So it is starting to be a very thriving little community. So come join us over at t.me/Bitcoin and markets. All right. So I'm going to end it there for today, guys. Have a good one. Bye.